It was awesome. That's time, memories that will be made forever.
You're ultra successful. I've never seen you stress. And like, what do you do? And he's like, Pavel, I don't balance or juggle, I synchronize.
Success and happiness looks different to everybody.
Exactly.
I think the best mentors are the people who are doing it because they believe in you and they believe in what you want to accomplish.
Right.
And this guy, I remember, said, hey, don't let your food get cold looking at somebody else's plate. And I was like, that's so true. You want to have a common end goal, but you need to surround yourself with people that are smarter than you and people who don't think the same way as you to arrive at your best end product. I think the key for me that I've learned over the years is you have to make sure your priorities are straight. And as someone who, my faith is very important to me, my family is more important to me, and then everything else follows after that. Well, I don't really believe you can be truly happy if you're not following the Lord's will for your life.
Right.
Because if He has a plan that's different from yours, you're not trusting Him, you're trusting yourself.
Welcome to our first episode of Behind the Build. Today I'm honored to feature a special guest right here in Springfield, Missouri at our headquarters of 27 North. Today we have Thad Forrester, founder and CEO of Hudson Hawk. It's a really popular chain of barber shops, and if you haven't gone, I gotta tell you, the experience there from the moment you enter to the moment you leave is unreal. I also wanted to highlight you got family going on, you got a little bit of ministry, you got hobbies, and you have time to take our awesome rigs out and explore.
Absolutely.
So let's dive right into it. How
Sounds
do you balance all of this within your life?
I think the key for me that I've learned over the years is you have to make sure your priorities are straight. And as someone who, my faith is very important to me, my family is more important to me, and then everything else follows after that.
Yeah.
And that's something that even my business partner and I, Paul Catlett, we discussed early on is what are our priorities? And I think you have to have that clear before you set out, or you can easily let the things that are most important in your life fall by the wayside. And so for me, making sure that my faith and my relationship with God stays consistent.
Yeah.
Making sure my relationship with my wife is consistent, that our relationship with our kids is phenomenal.
Yeah.
That leads and supports everything that follows after. Yeah. So from work perspective, hobbies, anything that goes after that, you got to keep that balance. And you got to keep the main thing the main thing.
Yeah. I remember early on when I started my business, first business venture, it was a couple of years after we had gotten married. This is probably 6 years ago. And I was trying to juggle, or how they taught in school, balance, work, church, faith, family, my time. And I literally felt like that clown at a circus trying to juggle all this.
Absolutely.
And I got so exhausted. And I reached out to one of my mentors, is a fellow strong business owner here in Springfield. And I asked him, I'm like, how do you do it? Like every time I meet up with you, you got this peace. You know, you're world famous. Everyone knows you. Everyone wants your time. You're ultra successful. I've never seen you stress. And like, what do you do? And he's like, Pavel, I don't balance or juggle, I synchronize. I'm like, ooh, tell me more.
Yeah.
And the way he explained it to me was, it's like a symphony. If you run over here and you're trying to play violin, then you run over here and you try to play that, and you run over there, and why don't you just be the director? He's like, you just direct your life to where it's all in sync. And he started giving me examples of how his family's incorporated in his work, which is incorporated in his ministry, and how they do everything from ministries in Africa to startups and companies all across the U.S.
Wow.
And I started like diving deep into how do I do that. And I started incorporating my family in my work into my ministry, and vice versa. Cool. And within a year, my life changed.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I remember sitting one evening at a mastermind of business owners, and a couple of the young guys came up, started asking me questions, and they're like, Paul, you're like the most successful guy here, yet you're the only one that's calm and peaceful. Like, are you really successful? I'm like, yes, I think I'm really successful. How do you synchronize, or how do you incorporate your family in your work, and your work in your faith or ministry?
Absolutely. So my wife is awesome. She works, I tell people, way harder than I do. She's got an education background, and she taught for years, and then when we started having kids, she made the decision that it's like, hey, I want to stay home, but I want to teach my own kids.
Yeah.
So she homeschools. We have
awesome.
four kids. She just graduated. We just graduated our first. So my oldest son graduated this year.
That's so exciting.
And then she starts our youngest this coming fall.
So the process starts all over again.
So it starts all over again, and then we've got 2 in between, so 4 total. But as far as incorporating them into work, in the barbershop environment, my wife doesn't have really a whole lot of desire to be hanging out in the barbershops, right. nor a need. Yeah. The boys obviously love coming and getting haircuts, and they'll stick around longer and just help sweep up hair and just be involved in or considering that as a potential career path as well, which is cool. Yeah. But I think with regards to getting my wife's impact, most important to me is the way she can be a sounding board to me, the way she understands me as a person, the way she can listen and give advice on things she's seeing about me, my personality, my stress levels, other things like that have nothing to do with the actual business side of things. Yeah. But the right wife, which I have, can be a massive impact on your business without any knowledge of what goes on actually in the nuts and bolts of cutting hair and running barbershops. Yeah. And to me, that's where she really plays a huge role in my life, is being kind of a balancing force for when she's seeing things, hey, this seems to be bothering you, what's going on and how are you addressing it, right? Yeah. That kind of situation. Because one of the things I've learned is, as I've grown in business, been doing this 12 years, like one thing that has to remain consistent is you have to be teachable. Yeah. So from top to bottom in my company, like the attitude is try to get 1% better every day you show up, you know? Like that. And from my perspective, if I'm open and receptive to not only what my gifting is to the organization, I have to be receptive to what the Lord wants for my life and for our family, right? Yeah. And to make sure that that's not competing with what my personal desires are for my business and for my family, that it's synchronized and in heading in the same direction. So it's being willing to, I think, as you look at things, as you grow and as the years go by in business, being able to pivot as needed to keep the synchronization in sync, right? Yeah. Keep those things together, even if that means shifting a role potentially or shifting somebody's level of involvement, that kind of thing.
Yeah, whenever my sales training goes on, we train our sales team that if a potential buyer says, hey, I need to check with my wife, or hey, I need to check with my husband, we tell them, you've pretty much lost the deal. But in my life, when I say I need to go check with my wife or I need to run it by my wife, I actually do that. And so it's extraordinary to me, that similar story. Like my wife's got her own venture. Like she started the company with me, but now she's running her own venture. When I can run something by her, and a lot of times the feedback I get surpasses my attorneys, my accountants, and even ChatGPT. And I've noticed over the years, it makes her feel a part of it, especially when I take her advice and run with it, and then she sees it come to fruition. It's an amazing experience.
The other thing that my wife is really good at catching on, and when she meets staff, her radar for problems is so much better than mine. Right. Like the best thing I could do is just bring her in once a month, have her sit down with 15 minutes with each of my staff and tell me who's in here for the right reasons and who needs to maybe find something else to do. Yeah. I know that's a crazy thing to say, but I think I'm so intimately involved, and so personally involved in a lot of capacities that sometimes you put blinders on to potential issues, whereas when someone comes in fresh without that predisposition towards this individual, they might see this might not be the best fit for what you're trying to do here. So that's always something I've learned to listen to as well.
Most definitely. It's a powerful, I like how you call it radar, because you can hire consultants to do that, but they come in not only biased, but for the paycheck. Yeah, absolutely. And so versus a spouse to come in and do that, they have your best interests, our best interests in mind. What about the faith aspect? What role does faith play in your business, and what role does business play in your faith?
Absolutely. One of the most important things with even getting to the barbering side of my career faith brought that to happen. My journey, I started out, I went to Drury, graduated with a marketing and advertising degree, went and worked in advertising for a company called the Marlin Company, doing as an account executive for Mission Tortillas and Starbucks Coffee. Those were my two main accounts, which was a great experience. And learning to serve these folks, learning the importance of branding, learning the importance of a good messaging, a good logo, all of that kind of thing, right? And creating that experience for all my guests, all my clients. From that point, after about 6 years of that, my brother had started like a high-end technology company. Him and my dad had kind of spun off to do something that he was interested in as a computer science guy. He's a computer programmer. So he went in and we started doing audio, video, lighting control systems, that sort of thing for large venues, for custom homes, all that type of thing. We've even done some work in the types of vehicles we've even done some projects inside of those, doing some drop down screens and other cool things inside of vehicles. But so I did that. I left the advertising and went and worked in that. Well, that industry taught me the importance of customer service, right? Because the TVs that I'm selling aren't that much different than the TVs the other guy's selling. The control system's not quite the same. What you're selling is the people, and you're selling the people that are behind it, right? And so I went and learned that. And during that time, I needed a place to get a haircut. Looked up, who won best salon in town that year, and it was Studio 417. Business partner Paul Catlett's salon. Him and his wife Hannah run an amazing salon. I was like, this is the guy I want cutting my hair. This dude looks cool. He wasn't taking clients at the time. Okay, so he referred me to somebody else. But over the years, the girl that he'd referred me to cut right next to him. So we got to be friends. All right. So I'll get back to the faith aspect. So during this time, I'm learning him. We're talking. She leaves, and he starts cutting. He takes me on as one of his clients. Starts talking about things like, man, I'd love to open up a barber shop someday, but I'm not a barber. I don't want to be a barber. I'm involved in the women's hair side of things. So I'm like, okay, cool. He's like, you're somebody I consider partnering with. Have you ever thought about being a barber? And I was like, I went to college. I've got a family business that I'm working in, but I wasn't happy. I'll be honest. I was not fulfilled doing what I was doing. I went home that night, getting ready for bed, asked my wife, I said, babe, you'll never guess what Paul asked me today. He's like, he asked me if I've ever thought about being a barber. I expected her to be like, well, that's crazy. Like, you've got a good thing going. At the time, we were pregnant with our third child, and we're getting ready to move into a new house. All right. So we had some big life changes happening. But she says, I think that sounds like a great idea. She's like, your favorite thing is working with people. You've always loved fashion. You've always loved style. Like, you've always taken care of yourself as far as your grooming goes. You love getting haircuts. I think it could work. So that's when the prayer journey started. And working in a family business, I was the main sales guy. That's something I've always excelled at. I paid for a lot of things in college. We're selling computers at Gateway back in the day, which I don't even know if they exist anymore. So sales, relationship selling has always been the key, big key to my success. So I'm sitting there. I'm the guy bringing in the jobs for Forrester Tech. And then I'm nervous, like, man, what if I decide to leave? What's going to happen? And so I had a conversation with my brother. That was the easy part. But my dad was in charge, and me and him are a lot alike. And I had this, I think sometimes the devil puts unnecessary and unrealistic fears in your heart to just prevent you from moving forward. And not just in this type of a situation, but in our lives, right? So I go to him, and I was afraid to talk to him. So we were having a planning meeting. This would have been back in around 2010, preparing for the next year. After that plan, it was in October of that year, and he pulls me aside after the meeting. He's like, hey, I can tell you're not super happy here, but I just want you to know, your mom and I, we love you, we support you. We want you to do whatever you want to do that will make you happy and what you feel like the Lord wants you to do. And if that means leaving this and doing something else, this company will be fine. And I was like, well, Lord, I can't have much of a clearer sign than that this is. So I told him, I said, well, this is my opportunity to tell you that there's this consideration I've been having about becoming a barber, opening up a cool barber shop in town. And I left that conversation with a massive amount of weight lifted off my chest. And then I walked out the door and I called Paul and I was like, all right, where do I start? And he says, well, first of all, you need to decide if you like doing this and if you're any good at it. So he says, I got some shears for you. Go buy some clippers and start learning how to cut people's hair in your garage for a while.
Wow.
So, I mean, that was my beginning. I found a $99, so you started in your garage, I kind of did as well.
That's awesome.
So $99 online course called Masters of Barbering, right? That this guy, he was like a third generation Italian guy that had put one of the first, this was back in, like I said, 2010. So the YouTube was a thing, but it wasn't as big of a thing as it is now.
There wasn't a million how-to videos.
That's exactly right. And so I got on and started, like I would have my laptop with the videos and I would find somebody at church. I knew all these kids who's their mom or their sister or, you know, guys who their wives cut their hair. So I was like, I can at least do that good of a job.
Yeah.
So you know what I mean? So I pull them in, they become my test subjects. And so I start learning and I'll tell you from the very first time I put clippers on hair and started cutting hair, I was like, this is fun.
This is it, wow.
Yeah. And I started in my bathroom, honestly, but my wife was quickly like, this is not going to fly. I don't like having other people's hair all over my bathroom. So that's when we moved to the garage, and I did that for about 9 months. Then I decided to enroll in barber school. So I tell people, kind of jokingly when I'm in schools, so obviously going to college, getting an advertising degree, working for a marketing agency, then going and working in customer service, like selling high-end custom technology, is a natural progression to becoming a barbershop owner. It makes no sense whatsoever. Yeah. But I tell people, like the branding aspect of it, the customer service aspect of it, allowed us to create the kind of brand that Hudson Hawk is today. Yeah. So when you see our logo, you're like, that's a cool logo. Yeah. One of my coworkers from Marlin sent it to me like Christmas Eve of 2012. As just something he had been doodling around on. I was like, that's it.
That's
you know,
it. That's
he's a good friend of mine, and his son and his father and son kind of were working together, and they continued to do work for us over these years. So
that's so powerful. Zooming in a little bit, that pivotal moment, is that where faith comes in, or there's so many young families and young entrepreneurs, and even I've met middle-aged and older individuals that want to make that step but can't. Sure. How would you inspire them to just do it regardless if it works out or not? Yeah,
with regards to faith and anything regarding, if you're a child of God and you trust Him with all that you do, we're not supposed to, number one, do anything that He doesn't want us doing. Right. We're supposed to be always receptive to Him changing the direction of our journey. And we're also supposed to, once we have an inclination, follow that. And I'm one of those people, I don't really believe you can be truly happy if you're not following the Lord's will for your life. Right. Because if He has a plan that's different from yours, you're not trusting Him, you're trusting yourself. And we know what happens when we do that. Like, not good things come from that typically. Yeah. So I think faith plays a massive role. And I would tell anybody that's struggling with that idea, if you've been praying about it, you've talked to your spouse, if you have a spouse, you've consulted with your spouse, you've had good conversation, and you still feel the pulling in that general direction, man, walk through that door. Because sometimes, even though that path might seem lonely at first, or seem, like I said, narrow and difficult, if it's the path you're supposed to walk down, it's going to get you to the destination you need to be at. Yeah. And I think even as we've grown and things have changed, it's not been without struggles and trials, you know what I mean? And so even changes in constantly understanding, hey, even as a founder, am I doing the right thing? Am I in the right seat on the bus? Am I the person to take us from here where we're at to the next level, right? Always being, to me, receptive to that type of leading is very important too.
Yeah, that's powerful. What about once you do start, you have, like many entrepreneurs experience, that first run of success and everything's going well, and then usually within 6 months to a year it all crashes and your sales lag, and it's just so stressful and you want to give up. I always say it's almost like our faith or marriage or even school, you get past first semester and all that excitement crashes, and you have a decision to give up or to move forward. Did you have an experience like that with Hudson and Hawk?
I'd say in the early months, barbering is one of those situations where you don't have that initial boom. When we opened Hudson, I graduated from barber school in March of 2013, and we opened Hudson Hawk in April of 2013. All right, nobody knew who Hudson Hawk was whatsoever. Me and my business partner both took a small loan out and built out the shop. He did most of the building. I just did what I assisted him with, because mechanical, building, construction related matters are not my strong suit. But I did whatever I needed to do to help him and assist. So when we opened up, it's like we didn't have a ton of money. Like it was funny, you'd come in and like our shelves were pretty bare, you know. We didn't have a ton of inventory and stuff, but our shop looked nice.
Yeah.
But nobody knew who we were. And I'll be honest, I couldn't cut hair very well. And the two guys that started with me had just graduated from barber school as well. So what I knew was, for this to go and be successful, we have got to nail the customer service side of it. Like we are in the people business, not the haircutting business. That's the commodity. You can get a haircut anywhere. You got to be about the experience. Yeah. And so that's what I focused on. I had to focus on that. So as far as having that early win, my first win didn't come until like November of that year. Wow. Like there were days when we would be sitting around, and I would always make sure they had the clients before I did, you know. So I might do 1 or 2 a day, you know what I mean, if I was lucky. And some days nobody knows. So we started hitting up. We pounded the pavement door to door. Like there's a lot of colleges nearby. Our downtown store was the first one, so we hit all those up. So it was a process, but I'll tell you, there was a fun moment. The day before Thanksgiving in 2013, we opened up. Our hours back then were like 7 to 7. Okay, so we opened up. We had a few people in the morning, but it's like 8, 9 o'clock. We just started noticing like people trickling in pretty consistently. And at the time, I think there was 5 of us there. And we come in, and man, everybody's got a client in their chairs, feeling cool. There's people waiting in all the waiting chairs, you know, and then we had to eventually go and get some seats next door from my Paul's salon was right next door, and we would borrow they had some folding chairs, we put them out. There were people sitting all over the store. Wow. And we ended up staying, and what was really cool is like that day he popped over after they closed early. And he came over at like 3 and just like joined in with us to kind of help us speed up and everything. So we had this day, and we ended up staying until almost 9:30 that night just to take care of everybody that had come in. And it was an amazing feeling, but it was that moment where I was like, okay, I think this is gonna work. Wow. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I think that moment can come early. Yeah. I think that moment can come late, but there's also been times when you're gonna hit walls. Yeah. You're going to make a decision that you may not have needed to make, open up a location that you may not have been smart to open up. Yeah. The key is to never let your ego get in the way. Yeah. And we're in a spot now, you hit that 10, 12 year mark. It's where you start to see, okay, we've been open 12 years, and it's like we got 12 locations. COVID was a nice little thing to navigate. Yeah. And that's honestly, it's still 2025. We're not that far away from it. Yeah. It took a few years to get things back to normal. But it's like, where do you go from there? So there's stages throughout the journey that you got to decide your alignment with the Lord, with your family, with your business and your goals. Yeah. You got to be doing those check-ins all the time. Yeah. So I think long answer to your question, the perseverance is required in the good times and in the bad. Yeah. And to never let your ego get in the way of that. To always remain humble, to always know that like as easily as this came, it could be gone tomorrow. Yeah. If I'm not a good steward over the things the decisions I'm making, the people I'm affecting, the people I'm hiring, all of those things. There's just so many points where as easy as it got there, it could all be gone. Yeah. So you've always got to be a faithful steward over what you're blessed with.
Yeah, I think a lot of business owners, even career-seeking individuals, don't realize that they get kind of complacent and they stop giving it their all and going that extra mile or going above and beyond. Yeah. And then they hit a glass ceiling and they get frustrated, and they'll come and I have a coaching program and they'll spend so much money coaching with me, and I'm just looking at their life. I'm like, you just got lazy. Like, how do I tell you this in a nice and kind way? Sure. You never truly make it. Yeah. You always have to stay hungry. Yeah. Stay vulnerable. Be able to learn. Be able to ask the right questions. Whenever I interview, that's the first thing I look for. Is are they humble, or are they going to sit here and tell me, how to run my job and live my life? And that's literally the first thing that tells me whether I want to continue with this interviewee or not continue. In business, we have hardships, we have challenges. Yep. I remember my first one, and probably the only stressful one I had, is whenever we got our first kind of litigation piece with another business, and this other business sent us this long letter. I forget I don't know if you'd call it a lawsuit or a demand letter.
Cease and desist of some sort or something.
It was
like
insane,
that.
like it all in one.
Yeah, a combination.
Demanding court, all this, and I'm reading this, And the last paragraph, like I read everything. I didn't realize that
Sure.
a lot of companies just hand it to their attorneys.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm over here, I took a couple of business law courses, so I
Sure.
know a thing or two about the law, and I'm reading every sentence. I'm like highlighting portions and the pen, like the whole attorney mode on it.
Sure.
And the last paragraph says, if you don't do everything we said, which was around $16 million worth what they wanted, which at that time was crazy for us because it was more than we were making in revenue in a year.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the last paragraph said, if you don't comply, we're going to put you out of business.
Wow.
And I highlight that portion,
Yeah.
underline it, and put a star. I'm just sitting so crushed in my office.
Sure.
Like so crushed that I can't even cry. Like I'm just like, Lord, I this is all new to me. Like
Yeah.
I've never been sued before.
Absolutely.
And this is kind of crazy. And I close this packet, really thick packet. And I'm just like, what would my dad do? And my dad, he had a pretty big company in Ukraine before he lost all of it to move here. And he's like, I'm just like talking to myself, talking to God. Like, I'm just going to start reading the Bible, which is weird to me because usually I go into prayer. This time I just had the thought to read the Bible. And I open and I'm reading a passage where God gives victory without the people having to fight. And I'm like, wow, I like this.
Absolutely.
So I write it on a sticky note. I stick it on the top cover of it. And I push it to the side, email the attorneys. We're going to win this. You guys do what you need to do. Probably 3-4 months later, everything just disappeared the way it came. And
Awesome.
for me, it was like, wow.
Praise the Lord,
Like
man.
from the most stressful point to the least stressful point. I visit my buddy in Florida. He's got thousands of apartments. And I'm like sharing with him, the frustration I had and why it's so stressful. He's like, that's the only one you had? I'm like, yeah, why? He's like, well, I get 20 to 30 of those a month.
Wow.
And I'm like, so what do you do? And he's like, I don't even read them. He's like, the attorneys do their thing, and I don't ever hear about it. I'm like, that must be nice.
That's wild.
Yeah.
I don't know if I have the stomach for that.
Yeah, it's definitely built up some grit. I feel like it's going to take a whole lot more now to intimidate or scare
Sure.
me, especially knowing that like God is there and He's my defender. There's this powerful song when one of our executives was playing The Office the other day, Defender, and it's amazing knowing, and it gives you kind of an ease of mind. Like even if you do make that mistake in business, even if you do mess up, or maybe it's unintentional or you don't make a mistake, someone's just out to get you.
Yeah.
You will have that defender. Your turn. What's been in the 12 years, 12 locations, barber? I'm guessing you've done probably over 1 million haircuts by now. What's been the most stressful business experience you've had?
There's been a couple of things. One was the first time we had to make the decision to shut down a store, right? We had a store actually on the north side of town on Kearney Street. Interesting thing about
Interesting area.
Yeah, right? We weren't making and evaluating our locations as well as we are now.
Yeah.
It was a decision that was made because we got a really good deal on a building. And it was in a spot where it could have worked, potentially.
Yeah.
It was right off National and Kearney, right?
Yeah.
Now the building's been half a dozen things. Going into that shop, I was like, okay, I know one thing. If I go work there, right, I know my clients will follow me.
Yeah.
Which I did, and I lived on the north side actually, not that far from up North Glenstone, and came in and had a great experience, and like my guest followed me, and I knew I'm gonna try to build a team around this shop and see if we can, do something that other people don't think we should be doing in a market, in that part of town.
Yeah.
Even still, like. You asked me today, hey, you want to go put a barber shop on Kearney Street? I'm going to say, not right now. Maybe in 5 years.
Yeah.
But there's such a people component to this business. You get so connected with the barbers that are in there. People that don't work in the hair industry, I think, can't really understand what I say about the barbering community. It's a very creative group. They want you to know more about them than just, they're an employee, right?
Yeah.
They want you to care about them as an individual and what things they're passionate about and all these types of things. So there's a lot of the emotional weight of this industry is very big.
Yeah.
And what would happen though in Kearney is we'd get people come work there for 3 months and they'd be like, hey, can I go work at your downtown shop? Can I go work at your Farmers Park shop? I kind of like that part of town a little bit better. And it's like, to retain a good employee, you're like, yeah, sure, go ahead.
Yeah.
So it became this like almost transient shop of, there's me and one other person that was there for, the long haul, and then everybody else would be like they'd there for a couple months, and then we'd bounce them to another store. So we let it go. We had it insanely cheap. We bought the building because it was so cheap. I think we paid like $75,000 for a building. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we actually made money on the shop every month just because of the low overhead costs that are associated with it. But it was not moving the brand forward in any meaningful way. So after a few years, we made the decision, hey, we're going to test something. We're going to shut down because we needed to remodel some things inside. We're going to shut the shop down for some reworking, and then take all those barbers and just move them into other stores. Well, we noticed immediately, even though we were still paying the mortgage on the building and everything, our revenue went up in all the other shops. The barbers were happier. Yeah. Everything was, so it was one of these things where, but you still have that ego side. Yeah. And it's like, what's it gonna look like if we shut this thing down? What's the perception gonna be? And you can't let your own ego and pride make decisions, cause you from making decisions that are right for the health of the business. Yeah. That that event taught me, like that store, even if we'd have kept it open, wouldn't have sunk Hudson Hawk in any capacity. Yeah. But learning that lesson in a fairly safe way of, let's shut this down, regardless of what people might think or say, because it's better for the health of the body, right? Got to keep the body healthy. The body's not healthy, doesn't matter what's hanging on to it, it's going to die. Right. You know what I mean? So we've tried to we've had other little things. This one hurt. Whenever our Sunshine, we had a great store on Sunshine. It was this tiny little building that started out as like this may predate you. It was like photo processing. So you actually had to they had these little kiosks where you drop your rolls of film off, they'd process them, then you'd drive back through and, a couple days later and pick up your film. Right, and then it became a coffee place, and then it was a barbecue restaurant. So there's like a little 800 square foot building that sat on East Sunshine, right in the middle of the parking lot there. And we turned it into a barber shop, and it was a little 4-chair shop that was just rocking constantly. We got notified back in how long ago was that? 2022 maybe? End of 2022, I get like an email right before the holidays. Hey, by the way, we're gonna tear your building down come March of next year because we're redoing the shopping center. We knew something was up because they hadn't renewed our lease, and we were a very good tenant. So we're gonna tear your building down. So we've got one spot that you could go into in the shopping center. It wasn't a great spot. So again, one of these things where we almost did it just because we felt forced. Yeah. And that's the other thing. You should never, in my opinion, make a decision that you feel like you're being forced into just because to make something work. Right. So that losing that shop, and we're still looking for something out East Sunshine because that's a very great area for us, and we will get another shop back in that area when the time's right. Right. But we didn't want to rush it. Didn't want to, go through something. And so I would say those are a couple of examples of struggles that we've came through. And then just realizing, man, we used to do everything by gut. Yeah. Like not based on financials, not based upon, it was just like gut feeling, go. I say it's a blessing that we didn't run ourselves into the ground because we were just like, hey, this looks like a cool spot. Let's go put a shop over here. Right. And it's like, that's not the way we should have been making decisions. Yeah. But I think there's a balance. As a young entrepreneur who's had exponential growth, there's times when it may not seem to make sense, but you still need to put your foot on the throttle and go. Yeah. As long as you're not letting it, just your ego drive that decision. Yeah, I've noticed a lot of times there's got to be a strategy. I always tell my team and the businesses that I coach, reverse engineer it. Yeah. I was talking to a young business owner recently, and he was like, he wants to do such great things, but he's surrounded with all the wrong people. He's got all the wrong examples in his life. So I'm like, you're trying to achieve something with people that have never done it before, people that are doing it wrong, and people that will never get there because they're in the wrong season of their life, making the wrong decisions, and they have no results in their life. Sure. So I'm like, it's pretty much insanity. Like you have a better chance of becoming the president of the United States of America, statistically speaking, than you do. So I'm like, reverse engineer it. And all of his brothers are in the church. So I'm like, I'm going to give you a church example. You want to become a pastor, right? Let's reverse engineer. So we're like, let's pick 3 pastors in your church. We pick 3 pastors. I'm like,
What roles did the pastors have before they became pastors? They had deaconships, okay? What do they have before they were deacons? Well, each one was a youth leader, okay? What did they all do before youth leaders? They were assistant youth leaders, all right? What were they before that? They played various roles in support in the kids ministry and usher ministry. And I'm like, okay, and so can you tell me now how I can become a pastor? He's like, yeah, so get very involved in any ministry, then ask to be an assistant youth leader, then become a youth pastor, then become a deacon, then become a pastor. I'm like, wow, you should write a book about it. Sure. Like, now let's do the same thing in business.
Yeah.
What's a car dealership you want to have? He's like, I want this and this. I'm like, we pull it up on social media. We find this dealership. We find the owner. We look at the owner's life. It was a 10-year journey. Started here. These banks, these customers, these locations. He's like, wow, it's that easy? I'm like, the process is easy. The work is hard. The pain you have to endure through it is hard. Let's talk a little bit politics. There's so much going on in the world, so much division, so much confusion, so many questions. Every day, like, I stopped answering questions. Like, people used to ask me my opinion on this and this and this and this. I'm like, it's almost like I don't want to be complacent in all of it or numb to it all. I just found that I need to do my own thing. Yeah. There's nothing really I can do to change the way a certain world leader, makes decisions. Sure. How does politics play a role in your life, if it does play a role? Sure. And if it does play a role, how does it look like day to day?
I'll tell you what is so important in my industry is, regardless of what my beliefs are, I've always felt like the barbershop should be Switzerland, man. It should be a neutral ground.
I like that.
Where everybody can come in and feel comfortable and get a great experience. Yeah. The barbershop's always been in a community, like the place that the melting pot of the community. It's like everybody goes and spends time there, regardless of what they believe, regardless of what side of the political aisle they sit on. And I try to operate my business the same way. I tell people a lot of times, like, there's a difference between being a Christian business owner and operating your business on Christian principles, rather than trying to force that on all the people that come and work for you. So I believe if we treat people the right way, if we set ground rules on what's acceptable and what's not acceptable, if we choose not to put a stake in the ground for one political party or another, or one social agenda or another, right? Then we're going to be able to impact the lives of a lot of people.
So true.
So I choose to remain very neutral. I know that there's people, I've got clients that I disagree with probably everything that they stand for, but I love them and they love me and we have a great relationship. And there's people that I agree with as well on a lot of different areas. So in the barbering and hair industry is typically a very creative, very, very free-spirited group. So it's learning to bring professionalism and bring standards and practices and systems in and like bring some organization to the chaotic world that is the hair industry. And for me, that's something that I know I can make a bigger impact on if I don't make myself affiliated or make my viewpoints that visible. I don't want to alienate 50% of the population. It's sad. It's sad that society's in the place now where you and I can't have totally different opinions and still get along and like each other and have a conversation. And I think a big part of that is this lack of actual education on subjects, not understanding why you think the things you think. And a lot can be said the same for religion, man. Like, a lot of people are religious because some pastor said something that they think they should believe, not because they've gotten in God's word and read it for themselves and understand why they believe the things that they believe. Yeah. So I feel the same way in politics. It's like, man, believe the way you want to, but make it an informed decision and be able to support and stand on what you believe.
Yeah, I love that. I've learned that the hard way too. I remember when the last presidential election was going on, and I wouldn't say vocal like most business owners were, but I posted, who I voted for and who I was supporting and who I was standing behind and for what reasons. Yeah. And I went as far as saying what things about them I didn't like. So I was just being, transparent. Sure. Lost a couple $1 million worth of deals.
It's unfortunate.
Yeah, text after text. I can't believe you said that. We're canceling our contract. We're canceling our purchase order. I'm like, all right, that's fine. It was a very valuable lesson for me. So then I pivoted a little bit. So now I think I speak louder with my actions.
Yeah, 100%.
And I've noticed I haven't even had to use my words but the way I carry myself, the things that I post, the things that I stand up for, the way that I say my speeches and speak on podcasts.
Yep.
One of my closest client friends is from the West Coast.
Okay.
And I like the word used, creative thinker. Probably the most creative thinker you can think of. Like,
Yeah.
people look at his life and my life and his views and my view and think like, how are you guys even talking?
Sure.
And we're super close friends. Like, we'll talk almost every day.
Yep.
And I almost thought like he thought maybe I'm not who I really am, and maybe I was getting off the wrong impression because instead of using words, I'm now using actions to express what I believe in.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked him one evening, I'm like, hey, so what do you think my, faith views and political views are? He's like, Pavel, you are the most radical conservative Republican I've ever met. And I'm like, you know what? You're the most leftist, liberal Democrat I've ever met. And we were sitting there, and this conversation triggered probably a 3-4 hour conversation about like, wow, we don't talk about it, we show it.
Yeah.
And because of our actions of love and going above and beyond and treating others how you want to be treated, just the fundamental principles that this beautiful country was built on.
Absolutely.
We're able to have such a strong relationship. And, it's been probably, another 6 months since that conversation, and our relationships just keep getting stronger and stronger. And he knows what I'm deeply rooted in. I know what he's deeply rooted in. And the idea keeps getting thrown in my life. The idea gets thrown into my life of running in politics one day. And I don't know, I'm kind of staying away from it in this season of my life, but I don't know, everything is possible in the future. And I always tell him, if I ever run, I want you to be my consultant.
Nice.
Because it's time this country comes back and unites again.
Yeah.
Like, where is this all going to lead to? I'm a very number statistics guy. And if you draw a line of the path we're going on, it's not very promising.
No, absolutely.
And sooner or later, there's going to be a breaking point.
That's one of the things that's also valid to consider when it comes to business is a lot of people that they've never ran something successfully, or they don't understand how to build something. They want to surround themselves with people that agree with what they think.
Right.
And I have found it so much more beneficial. You want to have a common end goal, but you need to surround yourself. I've always heard you surround yourself with people that are smarter than you and people who don't think the same way as you to arrive at your best end product. Because it doesn't mean no good to sit across the table from a couple of my people, my CFO or my director of operations, and have them just everything I say, yes, I think that's perfect. That's exactly what we need to do. It's like, no, I know I don't know everything. I know I may not understand the best way to do certain things. So, but as a team, if we know we're going to try to get here,
right.
If you've got a bunch of different viewpoints, that's how you arrive at your best solution. Also, listening to your employees.
Yeah.
We try to get feedback, like send out a monthly question to each. That can be something fun one month. It can be something more towards the business. But then I take that stuff, I distill it down, I make sure I recap it and show them what we do with it after the fact, right? So like we're going to have a personal finance class for some of our barbers come because that's something that they had requested, So it's making sure if you're going to get feedback from your team, make sure that they see you actually doing something with it. Yeah. I told people it doesn't mean because you put something on a questionnaire that we're going to change everything, but you at least have to acknowledge that the feedback was received and why or why not that you're going to take action to it. So that's one of those things. It's like and I agree, surrounding yourself with people in your life who can challenge you to make yourself better and defend your points of view and understand why you stand for the things you stand for. That keeps you built on a strong foundation, right?
So true.
Not just being somebody that's moved with every wind of, well, that sounds right.
Yeah.
Okay, wait, no, I like you that side better. You don't want to be one of those people that's just constantly changing with the tides.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big problem right now, and I think one of the key reasons why marriages are falling apart and divorce rates are so high, because men and women, they use a lot of words, and but there's not very many actions. And similar to the faith, if you look at where the church is today and where it used to be and where it needs to be, there's not growth. It seems like it's the same thing going down. I can't remember the last time I've seen a young man open the door for a woman or for anybody.
Sure. Absolutely.
For anybody. And it's so sad to see that we've gotten so vocal and so loud, and we pour out our minds and sometimes our hearts on social media, but we lack the actions that back that up.
100%. I challenge anybody to be honest with themselves and tell me that things are looking better than they used to look.
Yeah.
I can't see how you can be honest with yourself and say that, make that statement.
Yeah.
And you talk about marriage side of things. Marriage is hard work.
Oh, yeah.
I've been married for 21 years.
Congratulations. That's amazing.
And it's not always easy.
Yeah.
But the key is working on it. I see so many times, even good families take all their energy and pour it into their kids.
Yeah.
Right? And then once the kids are gone, that marriage can have problems.
Yeah.
Because the husband and wife don't know each other anymore. Like we make sure at least once a year, we're doing 2 this year, but like we make sure at least once a year, we go just me and her on a trip by ourselves. And we've done this for a long time. And it was advice we were given like years ago, but it just gives you, we tell our kids, you want us to be the best parents we can be? We have to love each other and get along with each other and enjoy spending time together. And to do that, we have to work on that. Yeah. The one thing I need to do better at is being more consistent with taking my wife out on dates. Yeah. That's just a confession. Sorry, babe. I know I need to fix that, and I'll get on it. But you know what I mean? That's one of those things where sometimes I'm out working or whatever, and it's like I just want to be at home. Where she's been home with the kids all day, and she needs to get out and do something. Yeah. So that's the area where I need to. That's so the self-confession. That's something powerful. I need to work on.
That's powerful. If we were doing an interview, I'd offer you a job right now.
Absolutely.
I love when newlyweds are like full of advice. And I was visiting a friend of mine church this 2 Sundays ago, and a young man is like just laying all this marriage advice, and then he's like, but I've only been married 9 months.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like you're not in that spot yet. Principles, yes, but don't give life.
Yeah. I'm like, you should.
The first 9 months are cakewalk.
Right. I'm like, you should have either not mentioned that you were married 9 months.
That's exactly
or
right.
mention your 9 months and not give the marriage.
Right. Yeah.
That leads me into mentors. For me, when it comes to marriage, and I'm not sure why it keeps coming up, but maybe someone listening to this today needs to hear it.
Yeah.
My kind of threshold is 50 years in marriage.
Nice.
So if you've been married 50 years, I want to sit down, I want to talk to you, I want to hear what I need to do and what I don't need to do.
Yep.
Every now and then I'll read a book and take bits and pieces of people that have been married less, more so things what not to do.
Sure.
But I love talking to people that have been married over 50 years and happily married. I mean, it's listening to them talk is just, it's supernatural. In business, similar. I have really strong standards. So $250 million in revenue minimum, have a corporate jet, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I have these standards of people who I go and I actively seek mentorship from.
Nice.
What does mentorship look like in your life, and what is the importance of it?
I think that there have been some very important mentors placed in my life at different times. I have one particular gentleman who would check, I'm sure, most of the boxes that you just mentioned, but got involved with my life and helping me try to become the type of business leader that I wanted to become.
Wow.
And did it in a time where it was very important. So like my dad passed away back, it'll be 8 years ago, June 28th. So he was a big mentor of mine, but he hasn't got to really see the largest portion of like growth. Now I know he sees it.
No.
You know what I mean? But this gentleman came along at a time when I needed some of that. I needed somebody to kind of fill in some of those spaces that were left void. I needed to be somebody that I could voice concerns to or have point out things that I needed to work on. And I think with finding mentors, the key is going to be figuring out where you want to try to be like you've done and see if you can align with those types of people. I think the best mentors are the people who are doing it because they believe in you and they believe in what you want to accomplish. Yeah. Not just, oh yeah, I'll mentor you for $5,000 a month. Like there's some people that can, but I believe that people are put into your life that can help fill those mentor roles. And what's cool is about barbering, the fact that I still have some clients, I have so many people that mentor me every month that they come and see me. You know what I'm saying?
Unlimited mentorship.
I've got the opportunity to take care of some politicians, business leaders, pastors. My pastor is a huge part of my life. He's known me since I was a child, and he was my dad's best friend. And my pastor has been an absolute godsend in my life to help keep me grounded. One of the hardest working guys you've ever met. Comes from a little town in Tennessee, and it's like one of the smartest guys. You talk to him, and it's like, oh, this hillbilly doesn't know anything. It's like, no, he's very intelligent. One of the smartest people in history, but studies the markets, studies so many different things, studies God's word most importantly. Yeah. Like, he is an awesome guy. So I've had all these people placed in my life. And then, like you said, the one-off, I still remember a comment from a guy who was a client of mine. I was complaining early on in my career. I used to get like worked up. Man, this guy left and went and opened up their own barber shops. Like kind of, you know, ate at me when I was in my early career. And this guy, I remember verbatim said, "Hey, don't let your food get cold looking at somebody else's plate."
Wow.
And I was like, that's so true. And I use that phrase a lot when I'm talking to new barbers or people, because right now it's like we could open up 10 more Hudson Hawks just in Springfield and still wouldn't be able to serve every guy in Springfield. So am I worried about competition any longer? No, because I need to stay focused on what I'm doing and make sure I'm providing and staying true to my vision and making sure that that opportunity is accepted and appreciated by the people who want to be a part of that.
Yeah.
Not try to change and become whatever, and not try to retain somebody who may not align with that, you know? So man, mentor, I could go on for days, and there's always, and mentors' roles can change based upon where you're at in your career. Yeah. Because sometimes you're probably burning 18 hours a day working, I would imagine, knowing what I see from you right now. There might become a time in your life where you want to slow that down a little bit. Yeah. So it's like you can still get mentorship that can guide you regardless of where you're at. I follow you on the socials, and I see the hours you put in, and it's wild to me. But it's awesome, and it's again, it shows kind of where you're at. But that might not always be the case. Yeah. I'm 47. I'll be 47 in October. I'm 46 right now. It's like, and that's not old. I still feel like I'm in great shape. I'm trying to take care of myself and keep going. I've got plenty of more years ahead of me. But I still understand, man, I don't have a lot of years left with my kids. You know what I mean?
Boom.
I want to make sure I'm taking enough time away from work to spend time with. That's super. You want to know what's important to me outside of my relationship with God is like making sure I get to invest in my kids.
Wow.
And spend time with them and take them on experiences. Like that's one thing I wish was different about our lives, is because we don't, like, by the time we're ready to retire, our kids are already grown up.
Yeah. And a lot of times don't want to hang out.
It's like, don't you wish you had that retirement money now
Yeah.
to invest in your kids, and then once your kids are gone, then you can go back to work. Yeah. You know what I mean? I know a few people that have been blessed enough to do that. Yeah. I'm like, man, that's the ticket right there. Yeah. But we can each do that if you make it a priority. If you make taking your family on vacation, it's giving them experiences. Yeah. I would rather give them experiences like going, we took my son on his graduation trip. We just got back from hiking out in Yellowstone. It was awesome. Yeah. That's memories that will be made forever, right? So now as he moves into college phase of his year, he's got those experiences to keep track of. Yeah. So I think mentorship is super important. Anybody that's wanting to start up, you got to find people that you look up to or are where you want to be, and get close to those people. Yeah. Now, I see you had Alexander Usyk, right? You sat down with him.
Yes, sir.
Now I know this is not my podcast. Yeah. I just want to know how that happened, because I enjoy boxing, and that dude's incredible.
You want to go to his fight in July? We're planning to go to
Dude,
London.
Yes, let's talk about that. That is, I was like, he sat down with you. How did that happen?
Oh, it was extraordinary. But yeah, I mean, it's because of mentorship.
Okay.
I'll answer that question, but I got to give the background to it first. It's not that I'm a believer. I know we're byproduct of the people we surround ourselves with. Yep. So whenever business owners come for coaching or mentorship through one of my programs, the first thing I tell them is, you don't need me. And I tell them my goal is in 30 days or 12 months, our longest program, is to put myself out of a job. Like, I want you to come and I want you to fire me. Like, I want you to tell me, like, hey, I no longer need you. Sure. And the first exercise we do is I get them to open their phone and show me their favorites list. Okay. We review their favorites list, and I tell them, in 30 years, you're going to be exactly like these people. I'm like, no way, no. I'm like, yes way. I draw them the chart, explain them the psychology behind it, the power of social circles, the power of an inner circle, how the people around us shape the way we think, we act, we speak, the way we process information, our ideology is all by the people we surround ourselves with. And so I say we got to change that. And so what we do is we delete the entire favorites list and we start from scratch. Like, number one, spouse. Number two, faith leader. So whether it's your pastor, your grandpa, your grandma, whoever that faith person that's rooted in your life, that gives you your reality check, that, hey, I haven't seen you at church 3 Sundays in a row. Are you still okay? Like, do I need to come and drive you? That faith leader. Or the moment you're broken down, you don't know what to do. So that faith leader. Kids, if you have them. Okay. And grandkids, if you have them. And then 7 individuals that you aspire to be like. And I say, get very specific. So those 7 individuals have to have 7 characteristics that you want. We write 7 people, and then we build off of that 7 key points. Like, what for me, it's have that devoted man of God. So you got to be devoted, devoted Christian. Number 2, jet. Number 3, revenue. Number 4, you can't have been divorced. So if you're divorced and you have everything else, like, nice to know you, I admire that you're still going, but you can't be in my life.
Sure.
You know, nothing personal. It's just, it is what it is. And then 7 key points. And the 7th one is not only share my values and beliefs, but support me in them. Because a lot of times people share values, but they don't support you in your values. So we restructure the list, and I say, if you really make these 7 people surround you in your life, and you seek counsel, and you hang out with them, and you go on vacations, and you do what they do, and if they're golfing, you're golfing, if they're fishing, you're fishing, statistically speaking, you'll end up like them. Like, you're going to start doing the deals that they're doing. And even if you don't have the money, like, they want you to be in their life because you're so excited, so part of them. They'll give you the money to be in this deal with them because they want you in their life. So I started seeking for people like that in my life. And I wrestled in high school. I did a little boxing over the last couple of years, just the training, nothing professionally. And here I am, a friend of mine sends me this video, and it's Usyk just wins the world championship, and he gives glory to God. And for me, it was like when I saw Patrick Mahomes or Tim Tebow do that, I'm like, wow, I want to meet that guy on national television. Like, one day, sooner or later, I'm going to be center stage, and I'm going to get my 5 minutes or 10 minutes of fame. And I want to be able to say in my 5 minutes or my 10 minutes of fame, when God gives me the chance to stand on that world stage, what they've said.
Absolutely.
And so I need to go meet them. I need to find out, how do I do that? How do I, in my highest moment of glory, glorify the one that put me on that spotlight?
Totally.
So I let one of my friends from Europe know. I'm like, hey, I'm going to be in DC. I'm going to be meeting all these famous people. I got a crazy schedule, but I will clear whatever time my schedule I need if you can coordinate a meet and greet with Usyk. And he's like, yeah, let me see what I can do for you. He texts me. He's like, go to this and this hotel. He's going to be there. And I clear an hour. We come. We end up spending probably 10 hours together.
Wow.
About 3-4 hours talking in the hotel. Took a quick dinner break and then kept going late into the night.
Nice.
And I got to see him, hang out with him. And the key thing that I learned from him is, in that moment of glory, when pride and all these distractions and vices surround you, you have to surround yourself with God.
That's awesome.
And it was so inspiring hearing such a world famous leader tell you, when you get on that 5-10 minutes of stage, that fame, that stage, you need to, as quickly as possible, come back and find your peace with God and be with God and be God-centered. And he's like, if that is your core and your center of peace and life, no matter whether you're through hardship, through war, whatever season of your life. I think what a lot of people don't understand about these really successful A-listers is they're men and women like us. And the only thing that really differentiates us is, first, they set that audacious big goal, and they relentlessly pursued it over a long period of time. I found that people give up right before their success. And so they go from, startup year 1, year 2, and I think on average year 3 is when most people quit. But after year 5, you only really start seeing it establish and go. And the example that I love giving is the mango. Mango is one of my favorite fruits.
Love
it. I had no idea where they come from, how they grow, how long. And so I started doing all this research, and now I'm like a mango wizard.
Okay, nice. I don't know the story of the mango.
So the mango seed, once you plant the mango seed, it takes about 3 years for it just to grow into a little like furling, like just a small little plant.
Okay.
Imagine waiting 3 years.
Dude. Yeah.
You know nothing about mangoes. Like, a lot of startups don't know about business. In 3 years, all you got is this little like
like, what am I doing? Yank.
And they pull it out.
Yeah.
And that's business. That's marriage. That's faith.
Sure.
Like, you can't accomplish anything in 3 years. I genuinely think it takes 5 years to accomplish something great.
Yeah.
So give yourself 10.
Sure.
Like, if that's what you're passionate about, if that's what you love, you're willing to do it in your garage and not make money for it.
Yeah.
Why would you give up after 3 years?
Totally.
So year 4, 5, sometimes 6, you finally have a tree. So now imagine spending 4 to 6 years growing this tree, and there's no mangoes.
Yeah, exactly.
So what do people do? They get the axe, or I guess nowadays the chainsaw, and they cut it down, and they go plant an apple tree. Most times it's only year 7 when you start seeing mangoes come out.
Wow.
Year 7. And then for a decade or 2 decades, depending how you carry it, whether it's a GMO one or whether it's an organic one, for many years, sometimes even decades, it can keep bringing you that mango fruit and something you can enjoy, your kids, your grandkids can enjoy. So yeah, that's the long story of Usyk and how I met him.
That's fantastic. That's one story I wanted you to tell from the first time I met you.
Yeah.
Hilarious that the first time we actually met was at, where were we at? We were at Tropical Smoothie Cafe.
Yeah, it's the theory of six or the power of six. I call it the power of six. I think the original verbiage is the theory of six. This whole world is connected by six people. Mm-hmm. I love meeting young people, and they get all excited, like, oh, you met all these famous people, and you're kind of famous. Can we get a picture with you?
Sure.
And I'm like, guys, I'm just the same dude like you guys. Like, I the only thing that differentiates me is I understand these things. I trust the process, and I'm relentless about it.
Absolutely.
You know, working 80 to 100 hours is normal for me. If I work less than 80 hours, I feel like I'm lazy, and I feel like I'm not doing enough. and so I'm in the season of my life where, you know, I was told at 40 you lose it, so I'm like rushing to get everything in.
I'm done. I'm 6 years past my prime.
Yeah. Well, it's not that you're past your prime, it's that your priorities shift.
Sure.
You shift perspective in life.
Yeah.
And money is almost of no value to you at that point. Right now, you would probably pay a large sum of money to spend an awesome time with your kids.
Absolutely.
And then when your kids have kids and they're busy, try to find some FaceTime to go walk Yellowstone.
You're right.
And there's no amount of money you can spend on it. So it's not that you lose your prime, you just shift your focus.
100% mentioned that earlier, yeah.
Yeah, one of my friends, he's 71 now. And the amount of energy he used to put into his business is now the equal amount of energy that he puts in with his kids. And he sent me a video recently. He's on Razorbacks through mud and everything. I'm like, whoa, you're 70,
That's
71,
awesome.
and you're mudding with your kids and grandkids. So yeah, I want to get it in before my shift in perspective and priorities change. But yes, to wrap all this up, what advice do you have for the younger generation? Our audience is in large part 25 to 35 years old.
Okay.
So what would you say to that 25 to 35 year old? And anyone who's older, I think it's applicable as well. But if you were to speak to your 30-year-old or 25-year-old self, what would you say?
Yeah, some of the most important things we've touched on throughout the conversation, just to kind of wrap them up in a nutshell. I think a big one is faith in God. If you don't have a relationship with Him, seek it out.
Yeah.
Figure that out, because without Him in your life, like all the rest of this stuff means absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
2, you get a family involved. Make sure you seek that person out, seek the one that God wants for you.
Yeah.
And that you put work into that. That you spend every bit, like faith and family have got to start first.
Yeah.
You want to see our society change? Let people start prioritizing their lives with those 2 things in that order.
That's powerful.
3rd, when you work, make sure your work reflects the efforts that you put in on your faith and family. Yeah. Like one of the things that's always been powerful to me is like as a Christian, it's like you should be the best worker on any job site. Yeah. You should be the person that is, yes, what can I do differently? Yes, take feedback well. Yes, you need me to stay late and do something? Yes, I'll be that person, right? You should also be the same person that protects your faith and never let yourself get put in a situation where, hey, I need you to work every Sunday and you're going to miss church and you're going to miss time with your family. Okay, there's times, obviously, as growing a business, you either get them involved or you're going to have some late night. Even when we were starting Hudson Hawk, it's like I was working 12, 14-hour days a lot of times. I'd open the shop, I'd close the shop, I'd have work to do afterwards, 6 days a week. But I never let Sundays get in the way. You know what I mean? Like we're still closed on Sundays. It's one of those things and I think that's very important. So like, and to start the habits that you want to maintain, you got to start those now. Yeah. So I think a big part, one thing we haven't touched on that's always been important to me is taking care of your body. Yeah. And making sure you exercise and get some sort of a regimen in with that. Make sure you are eating in a way that's going to keep you healthy. No matter how much you work, putting in a number of hours, if you're not sleeping enough, you know it eventually catches up with you. If you're not eating right, you know it eventually catches up with you. So all of those things play a huge part in people don't think, a lot of times people neglect their body so much. They neglect their sleep habits and then they get sick, they get hurt, they get fat, whatever the case may be. They let themselves go. Yeah. And that impacts your longevity, man. Oh, yeah. Like it does. You mentioned your 70-year-old. My father-in-law is one of my heroes. He has a phenomenally successful software company. He's 75 years old now. Wow. Does yearly ski trips. He still coaches basketball. He'll get out there and scrimmage with the guys on the basketball court. He is playing, when the kids come over, he's throwing them up in the air in the pool, roughhousing with them, doing whatever.
That's amazing.
So he's like, I want to be like him.
Right.
You know, I want to be able to enjoy life in my 70s and 80s and hopefully 90s as much as I am now. So I start those behaviors now. So I make sure that I have time to work out and take care of my body, you know. So, and the big thing is just prayerfully seek direction in your life. And try to surround yourself with people who are going to make you better, and not people who are going to encourage the negative parts of your who you are, but are going to lift up the positive things about where you want to be and where you want to become. So.
That's powerful. I appreciate that. Thank you for joining in today and listening to our stories, and let it inspire you. Let it continue to self-develop within your life, and understand that you guys heard two successful business owners talk for well over an hour. And how much do we talk about money? Minimal.
Absolutely.
Because if you don't have everything else straight and right in life, I mean, even if you do figure out a way to make some quick money, it'll bring you no happiness. There's a lot of things we didn't talk about, mental health and physical health, and maybe we can do a part 2 sometime and dive into that.
Anytime, man.
But that's kind of the symptoms and repercussions thereof. If you have family and faith rooted in the center of your life, I think anything you work towards, you can and will be successful in.
And let me say one more thing. It just brought up one more thought to kind of circle back. Success and happiness looks different to everybody.
Exactly.
You don't have to take what the world tells you is success to be happy in your life.
So true.
I know some of the happiest people in the world that make a decent living, but have all the time in the world to do the things and pursue the things that they want to pursue with their family, with their life,
Exactly.
I think there's balance that can be had to accomplish both.
Yeah.
But don't let somebody else tell you what it takes to be happy. Find that yourself, and through God and through your family. Find out what happiness means to make those two things a priority, and you'll win every time.
Yeah, so good. I actually cover that. I'm publishing my first book, hopefully this fall. And I cover that. Like, everyone's definition of success is different.
Yeah.
The first thing, when people come and ask me how does it feel like to be successful? How do I get successful? I'm like, well, it's like you asking me what it's like being married to my wife. It's like, that's weird. Like, I have my taste and preference, and I have a perfect wife. And like, your definition of wife is not my definition of a wife. And I've yet to meet anyone that's got, a wife like mine, or the characteristics that they seek for in a wife that I seek in mine. Sometimes there's similarities, but my wife is, something that is the perfect woman for me. And it's like, same with success. There's so many different definitions. And
absolutely.
I just did a podcast with Tim, who's currently walking across America.
Oh, yeah.
Raising wellness, mental wellness for men. And him and I were talking about, like, who are the happiest people we met in our life? Mm-hmm. And for me, it's that lady who did an entire career, 35 years at Walmart, and she's a cashier.
Sure.
And I offered her double pay to come work for us, and she said no, because she's super happy and she's so joyful. I'm like, at least tell me this is the beginning of your shift. She's like, no, this is the end of my shift, and I can work another shift. I'm like,
that's
wow,
amazing. That's the dream person you want on anybody's team.
Exactly. And I was telling Tim, I'm like, she's more successful than me.
Yeah, sure.
I can't go work another shift. Like, I'm ready to throw the rag in and get some rest. But yes, thank you so much for joining in and listening to us today. If you want to learn more about Thad, you can connect with him on social media. And then your website is hudsonhawk.com. So punch that into Google. If you haven't experienced one of his barbershops, I highly recommend it. It's an awesome experience. We got Father's Day coming up. Thanksgiving, Christmas is around the corner. It's an awesome family experience. I went there with a couple of my friends, and we had the whole bro experience. That was really cool. If you know someone that you'd like to share their story, or if you'd like us to feature your story, you can connect with us on our website, pavelbosovik.com, or drop it in the comments section. And then my last request, share this with someone that you think could really listen to it and have an impact on their life. Thank you so much.
Thank you.